A warm welcome to all our viewers, to our series Natural Medicine. Today I took up another topic, the so-called heavy metal contamination of the body, detoxification problems or poisoning problems. And I have a doctor here today, but also a patient who is describing her life, what she experienced and how she actually got better again after all this crap was taken out of the body. After the intro we'll get started straight away. Yes, and here we are again. Now I would like to show you my guest who is here in the studio. Dr. Med Harald Burgard. Welcome, dear Harald.
Good morning, Alexander. Hello.
Tell me, the lady we are now allowed to connect to, this Ms. Engl, what did you experience with her first? So what was the real reason why she came to you?
I think it's best for us to hear that from her later. Like many patients, she complained about chronic symptoms that didn't go away for a long time. We then looked at the causes behind it. So not just one cause, but many. It's always a whole package. And then we proved it and treated it. And what exactly? I think we'll just ask her. Then she can describe it to us.
I've already seen the lady via Zoom. And when you tell me that such a young woman has had to suffer so much pain, it really hurts me. And with that I warmly welcome you, dear Ms. Engl. Nice to have you here. Sunshine shines into the studio. So nice. Very nice for all of us. Welcome.
Yes, thank you very much for having me. And the very best part and of course the highlight of the day. The young woman who has to endure so much. You have already made the day by calling me young woman.
Nice. Wonderful. Okay, but it really looks like it. Let's get started. When I hear that, a lot of pain and problems, please tell me what was going on. How did it start? What happened?
The point is exactly that, I didn't know. So to put it this way, what got me to Dr. Burgard in the practice, it was a lot and nothing. On the one hand, although I am really a very energetic, cheerful, positive person, I really have a great lifestyle when it comes to health. So I was often told, what do you actually want to improve? Like, you're eating so well. You also exercise. You have a super positive mental attitude and so on. So what else is there? And at the same time, with all of that, there were just a lot of things over the years where I just said, something's just not right. And one of the most striking things when I came for the first time was that I noticed, especially in the summertime, as soon as it gets a little warmer outside, I'm just tired in the morning. I've slept maybe 8 or even 9 hours and have a hard time getting out of bed. So it took ages until I even got the machine going here. So from 10 or 11 a.m. onwards, I was there. And I'm just a kind of person, I don't like to put up with things like that. Then I always had a lot of flatulence that was actually incomprehensible, or flatulence in the sense that my stomach was always full of air. I think Dr. Burgard should correct me if it's wrong. I think it's called meteorism or something. So always like, what do I know? The osteopath pats the stomach and says, wow, there's a lot of air in there. When I say, I don't know any other way. And I just realized that I'm nowhere near my level. There was often just cramping, painful stabbing in the abdomen. Then, for example, years ago it was like that, and now many people might say that these are luxury problems. I just knew there was a medical reason for it. For example, I also tried to lose weight, now less of this cosmetic thing. But I just really wanted to lose a few extra pounds and realized that wasn't possible. So, now you can say, it's no problem, you're not fat. That's always what people say. But I say, no, but something is wrong. the body won't let go. So it's clinging to something. And these things just, being tired and bloated and the stinging and the feeling that I can tolerate less and less food. Well, I've tried everything. I don't know. I don't eat gluten. I don't eat that anymore. I haven't eaten dairy products for a long time anyway. And the list of what I could eat that was really fun and enjoyable was getting smaller and smaller. But that didn't solve the problems. So I was at a loss. Just at a certain point, but not willing to give up. Then a friend sent me a link to this blood wash at some point. And that was the moment when my intuition screamed loudly within me, "This is it, that's where you're going now." And then I did. Then I looked, where can I do it? So there are several contact points where you can go. And although Dr. Burgard really isn't around the corner from me, my intuition also rang in this case and said, yes, that's actually quite far. However, how important is your health, your energy, your well-being, your strength, which you really need for the things in life? And then I said, I'm just going there now. And I also have to say, looking back, I'm very grateful that I said, whatever it takes. So whatever it takes, I'll do it. And so ended up with Dr. Burgard with a lot of symptoms and the hope that things can get better now.
What did he do then? An analysis to determine whether there is heavy metal contamination, or what has he done?
So what he did, Dr. Burgard, help me. Well, I think, what was it? Bioresonance, which is what we did at the beginning, where I sit in the practice for 15 minutes and all the fields are measured for me.
Harald?
Yes, so we had a chat first. I sent her a questionnaire, a medical history questionnaire. It's about 17 or 18 pages long, so I'll start preparing. I always have everything sent to me, all the data that the patient already has. Preliminary tests, doctor's letters, hospital reports, blood tests, you name it. Then we talked, then I examined her physically. And then I did another scan, where I do diagnostics to see what is bothering the intestines, where does the energy problem come from. Then I get information so that I know later what I am detecting in the laboratory. And then we did laboratory analyses and proved that the energy production was disturbed, that the intestines were not in order and where that came from. And we then based the therapy on that. Among other things, we also did a toxophoresis or several to detect the poisons that came out. And in the control you can then see, how does this develop? How is the person? How are the lab values changing? We'll take a closer look at this later using slides.
That's what you did, right? A detox, a wash. You were washed internally.
Yes.
How long did that last? 2 or 3 hours, right?
I might just say briefly because people now always hear about detoxification and say, I don't need to go to a doctor's office. So I just take grapefruit juice and olive oil and then I do that. I did all of these things. Anyone who says, yes, there is something natural there. I love nature. I've always been willing to say that I like to try everything. So not just in the sense of trying things out, but actually seeing things through. And that always helped for a little bit, but never had such a lasting effect. And there were just a lot of things that were inexplicable.
I tried with chlorella and spirulina and had 0 success. Nothing. No mercury brought out. Nothing.
That's just, I don't know how to explain it. Well, I'm a kind of person, I always like to take preventive measures. I'm a huge fan of prevention. And I was just at a point where I realized I had done so much and left so much out. And I feel like my body is on the verge of collapse. And I couldn't explain why. And none of these things helped me. And the detox we're talking about now is completely different. So the things, I have no idea how I was supposed to get that out of me if not this way. And in fact, all the measurements, all the examinations that Dr. Burgard did, they showed that my intuition was right. So it was really just before the 11th hour. I just didn't wait until it was too late. But I realized I have to do something now. And I would be happy to show you what it looks like. Let's go there for a moment. So you can see here now, or if we look at this, that's where I'm lying. That's during the treatment. This is this toxophoresis. And that means I get dialysis needles in there so that this blood washing can work. And on one side the blood goes out, on the other side it goes in. And a treatment lasts about 2.5 hours. And what comes out of it is, for example, this is the first bag, let me zoom in. Before there's only clear liquid in there. And then after 2.5 hours it looked like this. And you can also see above, there is the clear liquid. And everything that's not clear is what I eliminated during this time. And none of that belongs there. But Dr. Burgard knows even better about that. Maybe he can also comment on the pictures. You can see it quite well there too.
What exactly is in there, Harald?
Well, what exactly is in there? There are heavy substances down there. It's this dark tip. These are often toxic metals, lead, cadmium, other things that are heavy. But then there are also neurotoxins in it, pesticides and insect repellents. There are car exhaust fumes in there and so on. I'll show some analyses later. These are things that we then prove. We send the eluate, not the one in water, but we also have a bag with the pure eluate in it, to the laboratory and then have these things detected. And that is impressive. There's diesel exhaust and kerosene and God knows what in there. Or even things that have been banned for ages, like DDT, DDE. These are substances that have been banned as insect repellents in Germany since 1972. We still find them in every patient today.
That was a really nice picture, please, again, Ms. Engl. The one from before, yes, exactly, we'll leave that for a moment. That's great.
There's another bright stripe somewhere in between. These are substances with a different color.
Yes, please, Ms. Engl.
Let me just say, just to make it clear, that was my 8th toxophoresis. So that means it still came up. I was shocked at the time, because if you compare it now, I think it was the 7th one. And then with the 8th one, it's really incredible to say, wow, where does this all come from? And at the same time always this huge gratitude. Thank God, it's no longer in my organs, in my blood. It's just out there. And I still ask myself today, when I look at it now, how are you ever supposed to get that out with spirulina or chlorella? Well, it might work somehow. I'm a kind of person, I'm completely drawn to miracles. I really believe in great things between heaven and earth and behind and before. And at the same time, here it was just like, I just say, then heaven led me there so that I do exactly that, so that it comes out. And I'm just glad that stuff is out there.
Yes, absolutely. These 8 washes, how far apart were they? Over a year or two or within a year?
Well, overall I actually have treated myself to 10 of them. That means I went to Dr. Burgard's practice 5 times, did 5 times too. And that was, what time period was that probably? I would say around a year and a half.
Okay, so intense. Yes, I've only done 3, that's why I'm asking. Okay, now the question that of course interests us all. Did you feel like there was any optimization or improvement after the first toxophoresis? Or did it only come on the 2nd or 3rd? And where are we today?
Well, one of the many symptoms I've had for a long time was simply sluggish digestion. So somehow everything worked more or less. But back then, I remember when I sat in the practice for the first time, I described it to Dr. Burgard in this way. My body is doing it. But I always have the feeling, even with these everyday things like digestion, just like that, it does it, but with like, whoa. Now we're mobilizing all our strength and then we'll get it done again today. And the day after the first toxophoresis, I was really hungry, a physical hunger and appetite. I couldn't remember the last time in my life that I was really hungry. And I only mean that in a positive way. That the body really demands food with this hunger grumbling and then burns it at a rapid pace. My partner was there too. He said, "Wow, that really does something to you." Because I ate really heartily 3 times and each time with hunger in my stomach, I noticed, oh, now it's practically done again. My body has already digested what I put in 3 or 4 hours ago. And then I said, that's incredible. And then I just noticed when the poisons go out, when the poisons are out, the energy is suddenly there again to do these things with such ease. I was totally convinced after the first time. I knew, okay, I have to move on here. And now many things have improved tremendously. This is just one of the many examples of what has gotten better.
And today? What is the status today after the 10th? It's all okay? Or will there be an 11th? What is your feeling?
Well, my feeling is, I don't know what my consulting doctor says about it, but my feeling is actually that I can leave it as it is at the moment. I'm incredibly grateful to know this exists. I'm a kind of person, I rely a lot on my gut feeling. So as soon as I had the feeling again, oh, I have to go again, I have to have a blood wash done, I would do that too. At the moment I have the feeling that I have reached a point where, if I just continue with vitamins, minerals, everything that I simply need now, I will still take a lot and partly in high doses, just like Dr. Burgard just prescribed it to me. Only now my body is at the point where it says, if you take good care of me, then I can do this on my own. And that just feels great. An incredible amount of energy has been released again. Energy that my body doesn't need to survive or to keep everything going, but an incredible amount of lightness has returned, this good feeling. So it's smooth now. And there is still, according to the findings, we just discussed this the day before yesterday, Dr. Burgard and I, there is still inflammation going on in the body. So there were also very high levels of inflammatory processes detectable in me. Very high inflammation processes. And there is still inflammation. I just feel now that it is possible. It is now possible to get it done. And before that I just didn't know what else would help. And the pain in my stomach that I always had, the incredible amount of air and all that has become fantastic. So I'm doing really well and I can do even better. And I'm just grateful that I did that.
I have one last question. I mean, it's not 11 o'clock now. We started at 9:30 a.m. You look totally fresh to me. That means that morning tiredness is gone too.
I can barely remember.
Very good.
No, not at all. So that's the point. I always knew that I was someone who liked to get up early and I was the type of person, and anyone watching now who may say they have an illness or symptoms or whatever. I think you all know what I mean. You have such a basic sense of who you actually are. So, what actually works? And I always knew that I was the type of person whose alarm clock went off when it went off. If I need an alarm clock at all, but just to use the example, the alarm goes off and I'm awake and I'm there and I get up and the day starts. And it's the same now, even without an alarm clock. I wake up early and think to myself, oh, life is beautiful. I can get up, I'm there, I'm present. And from that moment on, life begins. And that means that this toughness and sluggishness and even, by the way, which was also a symptom, I couldn't stand the heat anymore. Well, I always thought, if you take the Ayurvedic teachings, I'm just a cold person and that's why I can't deal with summer heat. For example, trips to hot countries were brutally exhausting for me. I was comatose for a few days. Last summer, as we know, was very sunny, very warm, and I enjoyed it. It was nice. I was just as fit on hot days as I was on cool days. And that doesn't matter anymore. It does not matter. I am always awake and funny and in a good mood.
Yes, I'll take this opportunity to ask Mr. Burgard a few more questions later. But I would also like to thank you very much for bringing so much light and sunshine into the studio and also explaining your story, which simply shows us that it is simply not natural to have such substances and that they do something to us and trigger blockages. I'm not surprised at all about the heat. And also the inflammatory processes, we'll talk about that in a moment. Dear Ms. Engl, may I say goodbye to you? And thank you very much again. And I'll also send the link to the video so that you can see everything and be happy that you were on TV. Thank you very much for your trust.
Many thanks to everyone who is participating so diligently so that even more people can find out about it. That's great. All my love.
Thank you. See you then. Bye, Ms. Engl. Bye.
Bye.
Let's go into the topic of heavy metal again. So it doesn't surprise me that heavy metals ultimately cause inflammation, right?
Yes, heavy metals cause inflammation, but of course also bacteria, but also pesticides, insect repellents, and other things. And here I brought a small slide with me. It's from the IMD in Berlin, which is a laboratory. You can see very well that, for example, at the top, bacteria or viruses, everything that is in the cell, activates certain inflammations that increase T lymphocytes. And then you have a different kind of inflammation than when histamine is ramped up, for example. That would be at the bottom now. For example, bacteria can also trigger allergic reactions, or toxins, which can trigger a whole cascade of inflammation. And of course the whole thing is triggered by something like this. If someone has amalgam fillings, that is in the picture at the bottom right, next to a gold filling, or amalgam at the top right, gold at the bottom. These are of course things that trigger inflammation. And then you see TNF-alpha here in the laboratory, for example. This is an inflammatory value that results in a whole tail of inflammation. The value is far too high. Or IP10. You can just see that these things can be determined in the laboratory. And you can also see, for example, what Mrs. Engl just said, you are tired. The mood goes downhill. Why? Because, for example, the intestines, she said she was always so bloated, have problems. And then, for example, instead of tryptophan being converted into serotonin, it is converted into another substance. This is something that makes you tired, but it also changes your mood. But you can also see these pro-inflammatory cytokines here. These are inflammatory substances that are created. They attack directly in the brain. And that makes people tired. This can cause brain fog. But if it works for a long time, it can also cause Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, and so on, MS. And these are the things we know. And then you can, for example, see how someone reacts genetically. Some people, they can tolerate anything. As the saying goes, you can eat shoe nails and never get any problems. Then there are those who have a genetically different reaction. For example, an inflammation level 2. It's like if you imagine you're driving a car, you give full throttle, the accelerator pedal gets stuck and the brake is broken. They react to small things with a massive surge of inflammation that no longer slows down or only slows down for a longer period of time. This is something which you also have to take into account. And they react more strongly to poisons and simply need to be detoxified more strongly. And you can do that using toxophoresis. As you have just heard, this is a very well-tolerated way of washing these things out using filters that remove environmental toxins. And in terms of tolerability, from what we've seen, it's excellent. Afterwards you can feel a bit of swelling under your eyelids and in your fingers. Sometimes you're a little hoarse and, above all, tired and hungry. Why hungry? Ms. Engl just said she was hungry afterward. The moment the toxins are released, energy production is ramped up and this happens within minutes. And then people get hungry. The sugar level goes down, which is why you can never come to therapy on an empty stomach.
At the end you gave her a few things to say. I heard about micronutrients. This is of course great for gradually reducing the inflammatory processes that still exist. Did you also do an analysis and say, you have to take this and this and this? Or are these your experiences that you already know?
Well, I'm actually a fan of measurement. That means, of course, I also do an analysis of the minerals and vitamins in all of these patients and see where there are deficiencies. Why? Because when I give someone minerals, certain minerals like zinc, manganese, and so on and selenium, they also displace toxic metals from their binding sites. So if I have a good supply of minerals, I can prevent toxic metals from being absorbed, but also push them away from certain places so that they can be better excreted. For example, if I have a deficiency in vitamin B2 or B1, then energy production is poor. And if I need to increase energy production, for example in the immune cells, then I give people the vitamins that do that. And you have to do that too. It's like if you drive a car and only have half the engine oil in it and only half as much brake fluid and no washer fluid, then the thing drives, but it doesn't drive optimally. If everything is right, the body heals faster, you feel better, energy production increases, your immune system improves, your intestines improve, especially if you give the appropriate bacteria. Today you can measure all of this and fine-tune it accordingly and adjust it correctly.
That's a holistic view, but it also makes me sad how many things we absorb in the environment, and actually haven't had any time at all in terms of evolution to get used to these substances. But today you have to look at them as foreign bodies and they do something and we actually have no idea. It's always trial and error, it's a field test. In 20, 30 years we know, oh, this and that problem, now we have to correct it again, but it's just sad, right?
We saw it back then with asbestos, the people who nailed asbestos in the form of plates to the houses, drilled, cut, inhaled it and afterwards there was pleuromethylium, so lung tumor.
And we knew it took 100 years before it was banned, right? Crazy.
Then we find things in the body that have been forbidden for a long time. We can always prove that. We still find pesticides that have been banned for decades in the analysis of every person when we do a toxophoresis. The stuff is still around somewhere.
One last question. There are also a lot of doctors who work with chelation therapy. Joachim Mutter, a friend of ours, once said that 50 chelation treatments would perhaps be equivalent to a blood wash. What's your opinion? What is correct now? Do you still do chelates or don't you do them at all?
I have done over 40,000 chelation treatments and am still excited about what is possible. This is fantastic therapy. You just have to know that you can bind toxic metals with chelation therapy. But I can't use it to remove any environmental toxins, such as pesticides, insect repellents, car exhaust fumes, and so on.
Plastic neither.
That doesn't work. I still do them, because you don't have to give every patient the maximum therapy, that's clear. I also like to do them every now and then, for example when patients come with rheumatism. I have never seen a patient with rheumatism without lead and cadmium poisoning. Never. And that's a fantastic therapy. Toxophoresis works faster here because you can get other things out besides the metals. This means I have greater overall relief. Nevertheless, chelation therapy is fantastic. If you do it correctly, it is a fantastic therapy that I still enjoy doing today.
Now that you've just said that, you've opened up a barrel for all the rheumatic sufferers. I think that's a very important point and would be worth its own show. I would like to thank you very much, dear Dr. Med Harald Burgard. It was great that you invited the lady too, because it just shows that there are many problems in life. This lady certainly had a good gut feeling to react to that. I think a man would probably have been less likely to see that as a quick sign that he had a problem. So my claim is that I think women have a good gut feeling.
Yes, that's true. As a matter of fact.
And now she really shone beautifully. That was nice to see. Thank you very much for your work. Thanks for the introduction. And you too, dear viewers. I hope we were able to sensitize you a bit to the fact that there are things in the environment that have absolutely no place in our bodies. And that if you have any problems, you might also talk to your doctor directly about it, whether it could be that there are some foreign substances in your body that need to be removed. Sometimes you just have to push people to ask themselves whether that's the case or not. Or find a doctor, an expert who really knows a lot about these foreign substances. With that in mind, all the best, see you next time.